Hello, students. My name is Miss Emily, and today we'll be talking about some adaptations. Now, if you remember from our previous lessons when I've come to visit your classroom, adaptations are something an animal has or does that helps it survive in its habitat. And in fourth grade, we talk about many different bird adaptations, and today we're going to follow on that theme and talk about bird nests. So nests are a really wonderful adaptation. That's how a bird creates its home and a place to lay its eggs and raise its chicks. So do you recognize this bird? It's a bald eagle. And where is its nest? It's in the top of a big old tree with a broken top. And that's important to note because that's a big part of an eagle's habitat is having big old trees that are strong enough to hold their nest. When we manage our forests, we have to be sure to leave those trees for an eagle's habitat. What is it made out of? It's made out of pretty big sticks. Eagles are big birds and they can carry several pounds worth of sticks at a time. That's pretty unusual in the bird world. Most birds are a lot smaller than that. And if we were to peek inside the middle of the nest, we'd find some softer things too to help cushion the surface for the eggs and the chicks to sit on. And how is it unique? Well, it's huge. Eagle nests can get up to 9 feet in diameter and weigh up to 2 tons. That is 4,000 pounds. And one reason they get so big is that eagles reuse them year after year. And part of their courtship ritual to feel romantic in the spring is that they bring more sticks to the nest. So every year the nest gets bigger. That is definitely a unique part of an eagle nest. This bird's nest is quite different. Do you recognize that species? They might come to your bird feeder. It's an American goldfinch. Now, where is its nest? Not exposed in the top of a big old tree. It's down within the leaves and the twigs of a shrub. That's important because it's protected there from predators and from the weather. What is it made out of? Well, it's made out of fuzzy stuff. Goldfinches wait to build their nests until late summer, specifically because they like to eat the seeds of thistles and dandelions and other flowers. And then they use the fluffy stuff from the seeds to build their nests. And they weave it all together with spider silk. How is it unique? Their nest becomes so tightly woven that it can hold water. And so the female goldfinch, if it's raining, needs to sit on the nest and protect it like an umbrella, or else the chicks or the eggs could drown. So a very different nest from that big bald eagle's nest. Now here's a loon. Very different habitat again. Loons live near the water always. And so its nest has to be situated very near the water because loons have a really hard time walking on land. They can do it if they have to a little bit, but they're not good at it. So their nest needs to be situated so that they can easily get onto the nest from the water and get off of the nest quickly if there's danger threatening. So it's always right near the water. This is a very small island that this one is on, but it provides good protection from predators and good sight all around it so it could see danger coming. What is it made out of? Well, loons don't put a whole lot of work into building their nest. The male loon chooses the nest site, and then the female loon sits down and pulls the vegetation nearby around her in sort of a playpen or a bumper just to keep the eggs from rolling away. So it's not much, and they don't bring materials from very far away. How is it unique? Well, being so close to the water is definitely unique. But even so, it's not waterproof like the goldfinch's nest, and it doesn't float or anything if the water level rises. And here are the loon eggs. I had a lot of fun that day observing this loon on Lake Owen and getting to see the loon actually rearranging the eggs before it sat down on them. Now this is kind of another interesting nest. Like the loon nest, there isn't much to it. It's up above tree line, and we saw the foot of this bird in our owl lesson in the fall. It's a snowy owl nest, and they don't nest in Wisconsin, but they do visit here in the winter, and they nest up above tree line on the tundra. So like the loon, their nest is just a small depression in the ground with a ridge so that their eggs don't fall out. So that's where it is. And it's not made of much, just what's around. And how is it unique? Well, snowy owls also use their nest as a food storage location. And so this must have been a year when there were a lot of lemmings running around the tundra. So the parent snowy owls, even though their eggs haven't hatched yet, they've been storing up lemmings around their nest. Lemmings are kind of like little mice that they like to eat, and they are ready to go. They've got baby food stored up for when those chicks hatch. This is a bird you might see flying around your house fairly frequently. It's a barn swallow. And barn swallows used to make their nests in caves, but now they make their nests almost entirely on human structures, so under the eaves of buildings and bridges, and right up near the top so that they're well protected from wind and rain and predators. What's it made out of? Mud and straw and some of their own saliva as glue as well. And how is it unique? Well, their saliva is really sticky, and their cousins, a type of swift over in China, actually make their nest entirely out of their own saliva. And then people harvest those nests and use them to thicken soup that they call bird's nest soup. Here is a beautiful bird you might recognize from coming to your feeder. They really enjoy eating grape jelly. It is a Baltimore Oriole, and their nest is out on the flexible twigs at the end of branches high in a tree. And that is a really good adaptation to avoid squirrels, because squirrels are nest predators. They will come and try and eat the babies or the eggs, and by being out on those really flimsy twigs, the squirrels can't get out to the nest. What is it made out of? Well, orioles are really talented weavers, and they will pick long strands of dried grass and loop them over the twigs and then weave them together into this really neat hanging basket. And how is it unique? Well, orioles here in the Midwest and the East, they have a lot of squirrels to deal with, so they build their nest on those flimsy twigs. But orioles out on the Great Plains that are building their nests in trees along rivers, they have fewer squirrels to worry about and more wind. So where do you think they might put their nest if they live out on the Great Plains? They would put it closer to the tree trunk on the sturdier twigs and branches so that they don't blow around as much. Now, this bird is very common, but you've probably never seen it. You might have heard it. It's a red-eyed vireo. They're tiny little birds, and they sing from the treetops, and they build this neat nest. Where is it? It is about as high as your head off the ground in a bush or a shrub or low branches of a tree. And it's made out of birch bark and spider webs and pine needles, and also paper from the nest of a paper wasp or a bald-faced hornet nest. And that is a really interesting adaptation because scientists hypothesize that predators will see that paper and think, oh, this could be a wasp nest. If I disturb it, I'm going to get stung. So they leave the bird alone. Another unique thing about this nest that helps you identify one if you ever see one in a tree is that they are hung between two twigs that are in a Y shape. So the nest is attached to one of each side of the Y, and then it dangles down. So they're a really fun nest to find and be able to identify. Now you might recognize this bird from coming around to your house in your feeders. So this is a ruby-throated hummingbird. And where do they put their nest? It is perched on top of a thick twig hidden among dense leaves and branches in a tree or a shrub. And what's it made out of? Well, hummingbirds use a lot of spider webs, and you might even be able to see them in early spring foraging under the eaves of your house, trying to gather up bits of spider webs. And then with the spider webs, they use those to glue together softer bits of fluff, of flowers and seeds and cattails and other things like that. And then on the outside, they stick little bits of lichen and moss to help camouflage their nest. And how is the nest unique? Well, the bottom is really sturdy and stamped down, but the walls stay flexible. So when a hummingbird first lays her eggs, the nest is just big enough for her belly and those two jelly bean-sized eggs. But as the chicks grow, the nest has to grow with it. And so by the time the chicks fledge, the nest is big enough, it stretches out to hold two almost full-grown hummingbirds. And then in areas farther to the south, where hummingbirds can have two nests in the summer, she can actually reshape the nest to be smaller again to lay two new eggs. Do you recognize this bird? This is another one you probably haven't seen, but you might have heard. It's called an oven bird, and it's very loud. It shouts, teacher, 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 out in the woods all spring. And where is its nest? It's on the ground, and it likes to be hidden in a lot of plants, a lot of herbaceous plants in the ground layer of a forest. So it's really important in a healthy forest for an ovenbird to have lots of plants to give it shelter and for it to hide in. And what's it made out of? Oh, just whatever's around, leaves and pine needles, anything it can find. And how is it unique? Well, you can see the interesting shape of this nest. It's a little dome with a side entrance on the ground, and that's what actually gave this bird its name. So early ornithologists, people who studied birds, thought that this looked like an adobe oven, kind of like a pizza oven, and so they named the bird the oven bird. This is a very simple nest on the ground, and it belongs to a wild turkey. So where is it? It's on the ground at the base of the tree. What's it made out of? Well, the leaves and stuff that were just around nearby. And how is it unique? Well, it's a pretty unprotected nest, but there's a lot of eggs, so if they lose a few, it's not that big of a deal, and they do lose some babies. And turkey chicks are able to walk around and find their own insects to eat pretty quickly after they hatch, so they don't need a very fancy nest. So now I challenge you to build your own nest. And you can build it indoors or outdoors, and you can build it for a bird with what they need or for you and what you want. So here are some examples. This is a nest I built out of some air dry clay and some natural materials, including dog hair in the middle. And here is my version of a turkey nest made out of leaves on the ground at the base of a tree. And here is my version of an ovenbird nest dug into leaves in a little dome. And I'm sure that you all can do better than I did with building my nest. And finally, here's a nest for yourself made out of blankets and pillows. You can feel like a little baby chick safely cuddled in your nest if you would like to do that in your home. So thanks for learning about nests with me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the lesson and looking at some other pictures of bird nests.